James Harrington raised his glass and said, "To old memories," then winked at my wife. I laughed politely, trying not to flinch. 15 minutes later, I found a note in his jacket pocket. A folded piece of paper tucked beneath his wallet. I unfolded it with shaking hands. "Just like old times," it read. He still has no idea, does he? My name is Noah Parker. I'm 39 years old, father of 2, civil engineer, and up until that night, I thought I had a solid marriage. My wife, Melissa, planned the whole thing. A surprise 15th anniversary party at our home in Minneapolis. Friends, family, string lights over the patio, soft jazz in the background. And James Harrington, me, high school bully standing by the punch bowl, sipping casually like he belonged there. The same guy who once beat me so badly in the locker room, I ended up with a broken rib and a bloodied lip. The same guy Melissa swore she barely remembered from school. But that night, they shared inside jokes, whispered like teenagers behind closed doors, and touched just a little too long between laughs. I should have walked away, but I didn't, because some betrayals run deeper than a single night. Some have been planned for years, maybe even since the day I met her. Have you ever discovered a truth so devastating it made you question everything? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done that night? Tell me in the comments below. And if you want more stories where betrayal gets what it deserves, subscribe to Revenge with Max now. You don't want to miss what happens next. Melissa and I met at a campus mixer I almost skipped. She was standing near the back, laughing with friends, wearing this faded denim jacket with pins all over. I teach one a little glimpse into how differently her world worked from mine. She caught me looking and smiled. Not politely, not awkwardly. Genuinely. We started dating a week later. She majored in child psychology. I was neck-deep in load-bearing equations. She made mixtapes. I built models out of balsa wood. Somehow, we worked. We got married 5 years after graduation. The ceremony was small. Just close friends, her parents, and my mom, who always said Melissa was too good for a numbers guy like you. But Melissa made me feel seen. Safe. Like maybe someone finally understood the quiet parts of me. We bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood in northwest Minneapolis. Melissa became a school counselor at Jefferson Middle. I got promoted to lead structural consultant at my firm. 2 kids followed, Max and Ellie. Life became routine. In the best way. Saturday pancakes. Board game nights. Late night wine in the kitchen when the kids finally went down. I didn't need fireworks. I just needed that soft, sturdy kind of love that doesn't ask for attention. So when she told me she had something special planned for our 15th anniversary, I didn't expect anything extravagant. Maybe dinner, a weekend trip. But instead, I walked into our backyard that night to find a full-blown catered event. Music, string lights, dozens of people I barely remembered from our wedding guest list. And then I saw him, James Harrington, red plastic cup in hand, button-down shirt like he belonged here. I nearly dropped the wine bottle I was carrying. Because James wasn't just a guest from our past. He was my past every bruise, every bloody locker room floor, every hallway humiliation wrapped into one grinning memory I'd spent 20 years burying. And my wife had invited him. Not only invited him, she welcomed him like he was an old friend. Like he had every right to be in my home. "Can you believe it?" she said, holding my arm tight. "He reached out on Facebook, said he wanted to reconnect. Isn't that wild?" Wild. That's one word for it. The rest of the evening played out like a fever dream I couldn't wake from. James was everywhere. He moved through the crowd like he belonged there, shaking hands, cracking jokes, dropping stories from back in the day, as if those days hadn't left scars I'd stopped trying to explain. Melissa stayed close to him, not in a way anyone else would question, but I saw it. The way her eyes lit up when he spoke. The way she touched his forearm when she laughed. The way they'd drift off together, just out of earshot, whispering things that had nothing to do with nostalgia. I poured myself a drink just to give my hands something to do. Max came over once to ask if we could go play cornhole outside. I told him I'd join in a few minutes, But my eyes never left James. Not when he hugged Melissa's best friend, not when he pulled my wife into a selfie, and certainly not when he handed her a drink she didn't ask for. At one point, I watched him whisper something in her ear. She covered her mouth to hide the laugh. He smiled, smug, and slow, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. I felt like a ghost in my own house. Around 10:30, guests began to leave. Melissa kissed people goodbye at the front door, thanking them for coming. I walked into the living room to help with glasses and plates. That's when I saw it. James's jacket thrown casually over the back of a dining chair. Something told me to check it. Not curiosity, not paranoia. Instinct. I slipped my hand into the side pocket and found a folded note creased, like it had been read and reread a dozen times. In tight cursive handwriting, I read, "Just like old times. He still has no idea, does he? M." My heart stalled. I read it again. Then a third time. The M wasn't signed like a coincidence. It was hers. My wife's handwriting. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't some awkward reunion. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a performance. One they'd both planned, and I was the punchline. I didn't sleep that night. Melissa curled up beside me like nothing was wrong, her arm draped lazily across my chest, her breathing slow and steady. But my eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning shadows into the corners of our bedroom. That note kept repeating in my head like a song I couldn't turn off. Just like old times, he still has no idea, does he? I had an idea now, and I needed more. By sunrise, I was already downstairs in the office we barely used anymore. Melissa called it her craft space, but all it ever held was an unused sewing machine, stacks of ribbon, and seasonal decorations we never put up. She never let the kids dig around in there. Said it was messy. Said it was private. I moved quietly, didn't want to wake her. I started with the bottom drawers. Nothing. Then I noticed the shelf behind the rolls of wrapping paper had a small wooden box tucked into the corner. It wasn't locked. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, tied in 2 separate bundles with a thin red ribbon. The first bundle was yellowed with age, postmarked from the late 90s. Addresses scribbled in teenage handwriting. They were from James. Notes he wrote to Melissa back in high school. And worse notes she'd written back. I skimmed through trembling fingers. "I can't believe you actually did it today." He looked like he was going to cry. I almost felt bad. Almost. "But you looked so hot when you pushed him into the lockers." "They all think he's harmless. But I know what he really is, weak. You were right to show him where he stands." I stopped reading. 15 years of marriage. And the whole time, she had a secret past with him. The same guy who once knocked out 2 of my teeth for answering a question in math class. The same guy she claimed she barely remembered. She didn't just remember. She loved him. She encouraged him. She helped him hurt me. And suddenly, the last 15 years of memories didn't feel like my life anymore. They felt like a cover story. A lie wrapped in a bow. And now? Now I couldn't pretend anymore. I wouldn't scream. Wouldn't throw things. Wouldn't even confront her not yet. Because now, I had what they didn't know I had. The letters. The handwriting. The truth. And I was going to burn their little storybook romance to the ground page by page. I spent the next 2 days moving through the world like a man watching his own life from the outside. Melissa carried on as if nothing had happened. She made pancakes for the kids, texted me cute memes during lunch, even kissed me on the cheek while folding laundry on the couch. I played along, smiled at the right moments, laughed when I needed to. But something inside me had cracked, and I wasn't trying to glue it back together anymore. That night, after everyone went to bed, I scanned all the letters, both the old ones from high school and the recent ones written over the past 3 years. 3 years. That's how long their affair had been going on. According to the timestamps, it started just before James moved back to Minneapolis for work. Except he didn't move for work. He moved for her. They'd been planning this long before I ever knew he was in town. One letter read, "I can't believe we pulled it off. Watching him smile through it all. God, it's almost sad. But I guess some people never grow out of being losers." I created a backup folder on a private cloud server, encrypted everything, labeled the file Mion, J, then Now. Then I printed 3 copies, one for my attorney, one for James's new Employera public high school district with a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and bullying, and one for Melissa. But I wasn't done. See, James wasn't just working at any high school. He was listed as a behavioral development administrator, tasked with mentoring struggling teens and preventing campus bullying. The irony nearly made me laugh out loud. I drafted an anonymous email to the superintendent's office, attached screenshots of the letters, including the ones describing the assaults he'd bragged about from our teenage years. In one, Melissa literally wrote, "You always said hurting him made you feel powerful. I loved that about you." I sent the email. Then I waited. 2 days later, I got confirmation. James had been placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. I knew it wouldn't stop there. His background would be combed through. The letters would surface. And the man who thought he could rewrite his history as some reformed mentor would now be exposed as the very thing his job claimed to fight against. And Melissa? I saved her for last. The next morning, I wrapped the bundle of printed letters in a gift box. Red ribbon, her favorite color. I left it on the kitchen counter with a note that said, "I found something you lost." Then I dropped Max off at school, smiled at Ellie through the rearview mirror, and drove to the family lawyer's office. No raised voices. No drama. Just truth, delivered with precision. The kind that doesn't need to shout because it knows exactly where to strike. Melissa didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try to explain. When I got home that evening, she was sitting at the dining table, the opened box of letters in front of her like a bomb that had already gone off. Her eyes were swollen, face pale, but she didn't cry. "What do you want me to say?" she asked softly. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Nothing. I've already heard enough. In his handwriting. And yours." She looked down, tracing the edge of one of the pages with her fingertip. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "That's the second lie you've told today," I replied, my voice calm, even. "The first was 15 years ago when you promised me forever." She flinched like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't here to hurt her. I was here to end it. "I've filed," I said simply. "Full custody. I've already spoken with a mediator. You'll get visitation, but the kids stay with me." Melissa opened her mouth, then closed it again. She knew better than to argue. Not with what I had. "What are you going to tell them?" she finally whispered. I leaned in just slightly. That their mother made choices, and now we're living with the consequences. News about James broke that weekend. The school issued a formal statement. He was suspended pending review. Anonymous sources cited inappropriate conduct and prior incidents of harassment. He tried to downplay it, of course called it a smear campaign from an old grudge. But the letters said otherwise, especially the ones where Melissa described how they laughed about the old days and how James still called me by the same nickname he gave me in sophomore year. The one he carved into my locker. The one that kept showing up in the margins of her letters like some sick little joke. The district moved fast. He was gone before Monday's first bell. Melissa tried to shield the kids from the fallout, but word got around. Parents talk. Articles circulate. By the end of the month, she resigned from her position on the PTA, stopped going to book club, started avoiding the grocery store 2 blocks from our house. She moved in with her sister. And just like that, the version of our life she had carefully crafted polished family photos, weekend brunches, perfect birthday cakes collapsed into ash. I didn't gloat. Didn't post cryptic messages online. Didn't tell the neighbors what I knew. I didn't have to. The truth did its own talking. Quiet. Certain. Undeniable. It's been 9 months. The house is quieter now. Not empty, just honest. Max still asks about his mom. Ellie draws pictures with all of us together like nothing changed. I answer their questions the best I can. No bitterness, no poison. Just facts they're old enough to understand, and silence where they're not. I've learned how to cook dinner for 3. I've learned how to braid Ellie's hair without her wincing. I've learned how to sit in that backyard, the one where it all fell apart, and feel peace again. Last week, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no salutation. Just one sentence. You always were better than me. I just didn't want to believe it. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I folded the paper and slid it into a drawer I rarely open. James lost his job. Melissa lost her marriage. And I didn't lose anything. I gained clarity. I gained time with my children. I gained the kind of stillness that only comes after a storm finally breaks. See, people think revenge is fire. They imagine rage, explosions, shouting in parking lots. But the best kind? The most lasting kind? It's cold, measured, undeniable, like a mirror held up so gently. It almost feels like grace, until the person looking realizes exactly what they are. That was my gift to them. And this life I'm rebuilding, brick by quiet brick, that's my gift to myself. What did you think of this story? If you were in my shoes, how would you have handled it? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you think James and Melissa got what they deserved, vote 1. If not, vote 6. Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Max so you never miss a powerful new karma story every single day.